Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under Thursday Sesh. I'll be your host for tonight, Stephen, and I'm very sorry about the delayed start to the show. We've been having some major tech troubles, some real gremlins in the works, but we're here now. Unfortunately, Jared won't be able to join us tonight, so I'll do my best to fill in his absence. But I am joined by Shane and Willie. So how are you doing tonight, Shane?
Oh, wow, good. We were flying until the tech issues, unfortunately. I was about to jump in and talk about all the amazing things that were happening and everything's coming up Millhouse. The Eagles competitive in the footy, the Matildas doing well in the World Cup, and then the tech issue struck. So this is my fault.
It's all your fault, yeah. I think we're going too well, wasn't it? And Willie, how's things with you?
Aye, things are going pretty well. I might need to get a cup of coffee here. It's getting a bit late over here in New Zealand, so we'll just have to keep going. If I fall asleep, just give me a wee nudge, wake me up.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll power through, mate. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, especially those that have been a little bit patient and are still tuning in. So thanks very much for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel, as it really helps us. And also like and subscribe on wherever you get your audio podcasts. Social media links are all along the top of the screen and also in the episode notes. So please feel free to reach out if you want to comment on anything you hear or just anything in general. So let's get right into it straight away. First week of the season, there's a good review done on the Monday show of the Ross County game on the weekend. So we'll leave that one to one side for now. And we'll start by getting right into the current state of the transfer window and the rumours that are circling around just now. Now, just before we went live there, I noticed that Carl Starfelt is confirmed officially by the club as having left for Celta Vigo. So let's just talk about that first. Shane, what's your feelings on the big Swede leaving us?
Oh, look, a little bit frustrating. I think he's had his knockers, but he's still an integral part of the team and formed a great partnership with Carter Vickers over the course of his time at Celtic. But obviously he's wanting away, and I think it was good that we got it done quickly. Look, he's a quality player. We're going to miss him. We need to make sure we find a suitable replacement or someone at least suitable to fit in underneath Rocky if we want to go that way. I'm a little bit surprised by the price tag though. 4.3. I think if I'm not mistaken, we actually brought him in for about 4. And for a player who's been of his quality for us, I think that's a little bit lower than what I would have anticipated. So I don't know if that's just a case of getting the deal done and them sort of taking advantage of the situation or not. But I was a little surprised by the price tag. But hopefully he does well at Celta Vigo. All the best to him.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by the price tag too. I don't think it's a lot of money at all for a guy of his experience. He is a full Sweden international, although he hasn't got more than a handful of games with them. But we've not really got much more than what we paid for him. So, Willie, what's your thoughts on the fee we've received and generally on Starfelt leaving?
It's a very disappointing fee to get for Carl Starfelt. Like Shane says, he's an integral part of the squad. Him and Cameron Carter Vickers haven't suffered a domestic defeat when they played together, so he has been very important to us. And to kind of make the same as what we paid for him, it doesn't make sense. And the whole business model that we're trying to set up with player trading and that, a player of his caliber, you would say, well, he's like 6 to 8 million at least. You know what I mean? You're looking to make a couple of million here or there on him, like, but we haven't done that. Is that the Dominic Mackay effect? Because we've seen that with Juranovic. We all talk about 15 million move for him, 15, 20 we will get from him, and we ended up getting 8. There's some other players in there that went along, and we didn't get much for them either. Like, you know what I mean? So, is it the ghost of the past coming back to haunt again? Quite possibly. Who knows? But he's a big loss. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about that. Everyone had his knockers, and he had his knockers. Sorry, but when for a guy, he couldn't be beaten for attacking the ball inside the box. Like he would defend that box like his life depended on it, and he was great at it. Like, cutting the ball on his left foot, trying to get onto his right, is where his biggest mistakes happened. Like when he was trying to just shuffle his feet over, and he kind of get caught in possession here and there. But as a defender, he was really, really good. Like, and he will be a big loss.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put this one to you, Shane. So obviously during the COVID season, when everything went a bit, tits up for us, we were sort of acute, or we sort of realised that we'd kept a few players that wanted to leave and should have probably let them go the year before. Do you think we've gone too far the other way now? And that, if somebody turns up at Lennoxtown with a frown on their face, we're ushering them out the door for a transfer. Do you think we should be maybe playing a little bit more hardball? And we know Starfelt wants to leave and ultimately he'll get his wish, but should we be playing a little bit more hardball with fees and stuff?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, and look, maybe we have gone too far the other way. We don't know all the ins and outs of the situations, but there's been a couple of transfers now. Willie touched on them where it looks like we've got unders, all things considered. So I think it's always about striking the right balance. You don't really want to have a player that's unhappy there, potentially not playing their best, or at worst, bringing the rest of the squad down in some capacity. But at the same time, you don't really want to be held to ransom either. You want to get proper remuneration for a quality player. And we've seen on a couple of occasions now where I don't think we've done it. That said, offset a little bit by the Jota transfer probably being a bit higher than we may have all expected to come in for him, or at least where he was going. But yeah, I think maybe we have. And I think we've got to remember that we still have an argument here as well, that we're happy to do business and release a player, but at the same time, it should be for a suitable fee that works for us, not just the other party.
Yeah, definitely. And Willie, it seems a bit strange to me that he's moving to Vigo, apparently to be closer to his partner Jacinta, and also apparently because his parents live in Lisbon, if I'm not mistaken. But that's still like a 4 or a 5 hour drive away. It just seems a bit weird that we would be so quick to entertain this without, he's not as if he's not going to be living with his partner or his parents. He's still going to be quite a bit away from them, although a little bit closer in Scotland. What do you think's behind this?
I'm not sure. Has he just not taken to Brendan Rodgers' style of management? Has he just decided, I really want to change the scene, I want to give a top 5 league a wee shot, and he's had the opportunity here with Celtic Vigo? It's quite possibly it's the latter of that, So it is a strange move. You could probably fly to Lisbon quicker from Glasgow than you could drive from Vigo down there. So
that was the point I was driving at, really. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think there's more. I think there's more to this. I think he maybe just doesn't fancy it anymore, and he's using this as a bit of leverage to get his move to La Liga. And for that reason, I'm disappointed with the fee. I think we should have held out for more. I think he's worth way more than that. But he's gone now. So thoughts turn now into what we do to replace him. So I think we can all agree that we need to replace him in the squad. If not the first team, maybe Nawrocki was obviously playing on the weekend, but we're back to two, seemingly first team ready centre halves, with Welsh and Kobayashi in the background, neither of whom seem to be ready to step up to first team. So we've been linked last few days with a guy called Gustav Lagerbjälk from Elfsborg in Sweden, very highly rated. I think he's 21, 22. He's been out on loan the last couple of seasons, but he's back with Elfsborg now, and he's apparently flying in the Swedish league. What do you think about that move, Willie? Do you fancy that one?
Yeah, it's one that certainly fit the player trading model. I mean, he's, what you say, 22, 23. We're going to pay, I think we've offered 3 million for him. Transfer market has him valued at 1.2 million. So they obviously see something in him by the time they're going to go high with their bid to try and get him in there. He was on loan at Degerfors last season, and he was apparently one of their better players, and he's come back this season. Obviously the Swedish league is 15 games in, and he's already got 2 goals this season. So at 6'3", he's got the height and the physique that sort of will fit the model that Brendan Rodgers is looking for, because Brendan's come in and said our team's a little bit on the short side or a bit up small, so he would certainly fit that role as well. So somebody who would come in and give good, decent competition to Narowski for the place straight away by the look of it. Like. And that's what you need at this level is competition for places. You can't have, you see it with like Joe Hart, he's got no competition behind him and performances might drop off a little if you haven't got that sort of people that behind you pushing you to the level that you need to be pushed to.
Yeah, and Shane, do you think it'll be like an equal replacement for Starfelt, or do you think he's got a little bit to go before he gets to that level?
Oh, I think probably a little bit to go. Maybe not necessarily in him and the way he personally plays, but just building up that kind of partnership with Carter Vickers. If we expect him to come in and play, I think we all assume that Carter Vickers is going to be our, starting centre half, and it's a case of who partners him. So Starfelt built up quite a partnership with him. They seem to work very well together, covered each other very well, and so it's about building up that link between your centre-half partner, which would take a little bit of time. But look, he sounds pretty exciting from what you and Willie have reeled off. He does fit into that player trading model that we're sort of keen to focus on as well. And, we've got Rocky in as well. And so I think it'd be a case of seeing which one of those partners Carter Vickers initially, and then obviously seeing if he can potentially jump ahead of Rocky. And so forth. But yeah, no, he sounds pretty exciting. And if we've gone in that high with the bid, like Willie said, we seem pretty keen.
Yeah, the suggestion from over in Sweden was this one's pretty close to getting done. So I would like to think he would be in the door before the weekend. But it's probably a bit much to expect him to walk straight into the squad for the game against Aberdeen at the weekend. But he definitely fits the bill. And he has already been capped for Sweden as well. In a friendly, I think it was against Finland, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, let's hope that one potentially gets done. Now the other guy we've been linked with is a guy playing in Holland called Xavier Mbayamba from Volendam. Another young guy, big tall boy. I think he's 6'3" as well, or 6'4". What do you know about him, Willie?
I just had a wee look on transfer market and some of the stat sites about him. He's 6'5", like you say, he's 21, 6'4", Dutch under 21 international. Former Chelsea and Barca. He came through the youth systems of the two of them. 28 games last season, 5 goals. So on a right-footed centre back. So could be a direct replacement for Carl Starfelt there. Just got a right-footed centre back in at the left, and away we go. But he certainly, it seems to be quite clear that Brendan's wanting bigger, bulkier centre halves. Lagerbielke at 6'3", Mbamba. I'm not going to try that again. It's
keep
6'4".
Practicing that one while I keep practicing.
I know that. We'll get there. Like at 6'4", you can see that the model that Brandon's wanting. He's not wanting to be going for someone who's 5'10" and not going to be good in the air. We see from what's coming from the opposition side of Glasgow, like they're all 6 foot plus, and when we throw long balls into them, so a bit of height in the back's never going to go on this in that situation.
Yeah, but none of these guys are going to get bullied off a John Suter at a corner, that's for sure. Shane, what do you think? Do you think it'd be one or the other of these guys, or would it be both of them potentially and have 4 like first team ready centre halves?
It's a good question. He does look like quality, and he's got he fits that bracket that we're looking at with the player trading model, and I don't know if we bring both of them in. I feel like we'd lean to one for now. We've probably still at the point where we need to actually bring down a few people in the squad as opposed to bring more in. So I think
I think you're probably right. I think it's probably definitely going to be one or the other. Yeah, so I think it'd definitely be one or the other. I don't think we'd end up with 4 first team ready centre halves. It's my question is, or the concern I have with the centre halves is, are we actually improving because I think we can all see the need from last year, especially in the Champions League campaign. Can we improve from last year? And do you think any of these players are going to improve the back line, especially straight away? What do you think, Shane?
It's a good question. I don't know how I answered that with all the echo in my ears before. So if I came across a little bit lost and dazed and confused, I mean, that is my general mood anyway, but it was because of the echo, I promise. It's a really good question. They sound like quality players, and particularly the latter of the two, by Buyamba. Apologies if I've made a hash of that. He's obviously got some decent pedigree coming through the youth systems of Barca and Chelsea, I think you said, Willie. But they're young, and I mean that's a Lagerbielke was capped for Sweden. Look, I think they could fit. I think they could slot in, but I think it's all about building up that link with your centre half partner. So I don't know if they'd immediately jump in and be the quality that Starfelt's at. We've been very lucky to have two quality centre halves that you could, I'll say it, you could rely on, and it takes some time to build that up. And so I'm not too sure if they would immediately hit the ground running. So to your point, we're probably not bringing someone in that age bracket who's going to jump straight in and be quality. That might be a bit more of a project player if it's those two. Whereas maybe someone else who's a bit older might be able to slot straight in.
Yeah, that old word there, project player. It seems like it's the death knell for many signings at Celtic. Now both these guys they're both internationals. I think Mbiyamba has been capped at under 23 for Holland. If that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And like easier than it does for mine, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've been practicing it all day, mate. And Lagerbielke has been capped for Sweden, so I don't think they're project players. Maybe a little bit of a concern if they're enough to sort of change their fortunes in Europe. What do you think, Willie?
I think the two boys that we're linked with at the moment, they might not have the European experience, but Narowski seems to have that. He's played in Europe with Legia, maybe at a lesser level, but he still has that European experience behind him. I think his Legia side played Leicester, and that's where Brendan Rodgers has taken a fancy to the boy from. So I think you may have that. That will be our first pairing, our first picks going forward will be Narowski and CCV. And if it's one or both of these boys that come in, they'll just be there to sort of push them to make sure that they're getting to the levels that they need to be at, like, and maybe as I think we touched on the Monday crew that you might have a domestic squad and a European squad. So one of these boys might come in on the Sunday, whereas Narowski and CCV will play guaranteed to play in the European games.
Yeah, that domestic one team for Scotland, one team for Europe. It reminds me very much of a David Murray quote at one time. Just before their club disappeared down the shitter completely. So we've got Jared back. Jared, great to have you along. What's your take on the two centre halves we've been linked with?
Yeah, I think Mbiyamba is a bit of a Rolls Royce sort of player. It's going to take a bit of time to get moving along with. But he does have a lot of the Virgils about him with all the attributes, height, and all that sort of stuff. In terms of what's the other bloke, Lagerbielke, looks like he'll be the one coming in for the £3 million. It looks like a quality player as well. But whoever's coming in to be a third stringer, realistically you're going to have, you're going to have Carter Vickers and Narocki starting with Starfelt off, and then you'll have one of those two, maybe even both of them if we move someone else on. Who knows? But yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it. We've got other guys we're linked with, like Harry Suter coming in. No thanks. Even though he's one of the better centre backs at the World Cup. No, it's going to be the Lagerbielke or Yamba, however you say it.
Yeah, that's as good an effort as I've heard from anyone. So yeah, you mentioned Harry Suter there. Just go to you quick, Shane. Any interest in signing a big dirty Hun?
That's a very leading question. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I rate the guy. I really do. But I'll stress by saying I think it's a moot point. I think it's all a moot point. He He transferred to Leicester for big money. I think he's on a pretty big deal, like a 5-year deal. Like I don't see this getting off the ground for us. It doesn't really fit the model that we're going for either, in my opinion. So I don't think it will happen. So people who are concerned can probably rest easy a little bit. But no, look, I do think he's quality. I've seen him, obviously. He's part of the Socceroos setup, and he's probably almost the first pick for the Socceroos at the moment. And he was arguably our best player at the World Cup, and it's probably what led to him getting that big money deal at Leicester. So he's good. And Willie's talking about, obviously, needing a bit of size. Well, he's huge, right? You just pick him out from set pieces and corners, right? But look, I just don't think it would happen. It's simply not in the ballpark of what we're after. So people, if you're a bit concerned by it, take a breath.
And Willie, you fancy Harry Souttar?
No. I'll check my notes here. It says massive fan, get that. Oh, it's been autocorrected.
Massive head.
He does have a massive head. Yeah, I don't think there's any possibility of signing Harry Souttar. Is it the right way? Harry and John, isn't it? The Souttar brothers. I think if anything, he might end up on loan at Rangers. They certainly won't have the money to sign him, but if they get to the Champions League, they might be able to put together some sort of loan package for him. But nah, I don't rate him that highly. I know he had a good World Cup for the Socceroos. And a lot of that was based on some really good tackles that he put in, last ditch defending and stuff, and he was very committed, so he gets the points for that. But he fell out of favour completely at Leicester, and now the new boss doesn't want a bar of him, so nah, I can't see that one happening. So let's move on from that. So next up we'll talk about rumours surrounding Rio Hatate and his potential departure from the club. Now he was left out of the starting lineup against Ross County. I think it's fair to say, to the surprise of most people who expected him to line up there, but he lost his place to David Turnbull. So Jared, I'll grab your thoughts first. Do you think Rio's on his way out?
Wouldn't surprise me. And to be honest with you, if he was to leave, then as long as we bring in someone else, I think midfield's probably our strongest position in the squad overall now. So it's a matter of, all right, how are we going to fill it? Are we going to... Tade's one that I thought we'd need for Europe, but with the way, he's misplaces passes and stuff like that, I don't really think he suits the Rodgers system, particularly with how he'd want to play in Europe with the old counter-attacking and, sitting a bit deeper and everything. So if he leaves and we get a good amount of cash for him and then we reinvest it, great. If we're not going to reinvest it in the midfield, then I don't think it's a good move, because in Europe, I don't think Turnbull, O'Reilly and Kelmack is a strong enough midfield for us in the Champions League.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he would definitely need to be replaced. I must admit, it raised my eyebrows when I saw him not being selected on Saturday. I was very surprised, especially since Turnbull's been miles out of favour. What do you reckon, Shane? Do you think he'll be here by the end of the transfer window?
It's tough to say. Look, maybe I'm just a bit naive or looking at it with rose-coloured glasses. I didn't initially read into it too much with him not actually playing on the weekend. I was a little bit surprised, but at the same time, I could kind of see the merit behind it. Turnbull showed a fair bit during the preseason games that he was involved in. I think Rodgers is really keen to get an idea of how his squad is going to work from a depth perspective, and so being able to have both O'Reilly and Turnbull in against Ross County allows him to kind of see how they're going to work together under his system, and just see if there is sort of some areas that Rio is crucial to that maybe David and Matt don't really cover. And as good as David was and as good as Matt was, and I thought they both had good games, I think we did miss Rio's energy in midfield. I think we missed a little bit of that combativeness that he provides. So, look, I don't think he was happy about being left out, but I don't necessarily think that that's him off. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me if he actually starts on the weekend at Pittodrie, to be honest with you, and either Turnbull or O'Reilly sits out. So I'm not as convinced he's on the off just yet.
Yeah, well, the suggestion bouncing around the socials today is that maybe Rodgers doesn't fancy his sort of high risk aspect to his game. Ange obviously encouraged the players to try risky passes in the hope that our high intensity press would get the ball back. And the suggestion is that he takes a more pragmatic view to ball retention. Do you think there's something in that? And do you think we'll see Hatate playing on the weekend?
I hope we see Hatate playing, because I really do think he's pivotal to the number 10 role for Celtic at the moment. We've seen the way at the weekend Celtic sort of went out 4-3-3 on the attack and then sort of formed back into a 4-2-3-1 when we were defending. I mean, he has that eye for a pass that can release Maeda in a flash, and all of a sudden the team's on the back foot scrambling when Maeda's pace is latching onto a ball that he's put through there. And yeah, he's got an eye for a pass, he definitely does. But like you say, Rodgers likes to be pragmatic and he likes the possession base. If you look at the stats, you'll probably see that, like, although we had a lot of possession under Ange, you might find that the possession might be a little bit higher under Brendan, because he's more patient with the ball. He'll wait for an opening to happen and he'll just pass it around the pitch until that opening happens. Does that fit with what Rio Hatate is going to do? Quite possible that he just doesn't fancy him, because, like you said, he takes too many risks with the ball. But for me, I don't think he is on his way out. I think he will stay, and I think it may be just a case of Brendan trying to get across to him what his message is of how the game should be played, and try and get Rio to sort of come and get into tow with that and get along with it. And there's me saying he won't go. So if you're a betting man, don't put your money out signing for someone else tomorrow, because that's how it always works for me. But no, I wouldn't be interested in selling him. But if we are to sell him, then we need to reinvest that money, because I don't think going forward, David Turnbull will be the answer in Europe. Maybe in Scotland he'll do a good job there, but in Europe I think he'll get quickly found out as a number 10.
Yeah, look, I think the issue with Hatate is that the difference between his best game and his worst game is just too big just now. When he's good, he's absolutely sensational, but when he's bad, he's an absolute passenger. And that was really summed up by the James Forrest testimonial match against Bilbao. Scored a great goal, did some great things, but was largely terrible on the ball and gave the ball away numerous times. And I don't think that's a Brendan Rodgers type of player at all. Now, whether he goes or not, I hope not, because I feel as if we've already lost a number of first team regular players. Such, we lost Aaron Moy, we've lost Jota, we've lost Carl Starfelt now. I think losing Hatate on top of that would be just maybe one too many, and it starts to look like a real rebuild then, if we go down that road. But so hopefully he'll stay around. And yeah, I agree with what you're all saying. I wouldn't be surprised if he was picked in the first team on Sunday against Aberdeen. So I'll pass back to you, Jared, to take us on for a bit.
Yeah, so just with something you just said there, Stephen, I want to bring up. You're saying the difference between Hatate's like best form and his other and like a bad game. It's like Olivier Ncham but with work rate. That's the way I view it. So, but the talk is that we've been linked with Tommy Doyle from Man City and one other guy there. I can't remember his name. A couple of young central midfielders on loan from Man City. For me, it's a no. That's what I want to find out. Would we take guys on loan? Willie's dropped out. Would we take guys on loan? I don't want to develop other clubs' players. So I'd rather us go and sign someone ourselves, whether that's we buy Doyle outright or we were to go and bring in someone else, maybe Ryder, if we could sign him up again, reinvest the whole money for him, it could potentially be an option. What's your thoughts, Shane?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd probably I'll probably echo a little bit of what Stephen said before. Like to lose someone like Hatate would be a quality first team player, and we've lost quite a few recently. So I'd probably be looking to bring someone in that we could actually pop straight into midfield when required and pretty much bring them in. I like the idea of bringing in, or I like the thought of bringing in the Man City kids, but James McAtee, that must be the second one. But I just think losing someone of that quality, you'd want to replace someone and bring them in straight away, someone that you can literally sit in midfield as soon as you sign them. And so, yeah, reinvesting that money would be pretty crucial for me.
Yeah, we've got a comment here from RL77. No loans, please, unless with buying clauses. That's the only model I think we need to do with loans going forward, unless it was to have someone like Messi come in. But that's not going to happen. So what we'll do is we'll push on from that topic there. So what I want to do, boys, is I just want to discuss our general thoughts on how the transfer window is progressing. There's about 3 weeks left in the window, end of the month it closes. So what's that, 21 days? Yeah, 3 weeks exactly. Seeing online, whether it's on KDS, whether it's on Facebook groups, Twitter, the works, there's a lot of discontent amongst Celtic fans towards the club's transfer activity this summer window. So we'll go around the room. We'll start with you, Willie. Is this discontent justified? Because so far we've had 6 signings. One of them is Awada. We had 6 signings. The rest of the guys that we've spent money on is 12.6 million spent, and every single one of them is 21 or younger. I know you guys were talking about projects earlier on. So what are your thoughts overall so far on how the transfer window is progressing?
I think the business has been a bit low-key so far. The signings have been the sort of long-term targets that are in the low-risk category. Like you say, they're all under sort of 23 years of age. They're going to go on. We'll probably make our money back on them. Narowski seems to be the one that we spent a bit of money on. Brendan Rodgers, like I said earlier, he was seen by Brendan playing for Legia against Leicester. So Brendan's seen something he liked, and he's gone out and pushed the boat out and got this boy. But I will admit, I'm starting to get a little bit antsy about some of the lack of movement in some of the key positions, most notably sort of goalkeeper for me. I think left back, centre back, and a striker, we really need to start addressing those issues, and I would like to see some movement starting to happen in these. But I'm not hitting the panic button just yet. I'm just sort of hands hovering slightly over it at the present, like so.
I think to pick up on what Willie's saying, which I kind of agree with. I think if you're looking at it and going, we want to bring in players that are going to replace what we've lost and literally come into the first team straight away, we've probably only got one, which is Rocky or Narovski. And even then, I think until Starfelt left, he was probably in behind Starfelt. So have we really brought anyone in that's immediately commanding a first team spot? We probably haven't. Now, we've already got a really strong squad as it is, but I think if you're looking to bring that in and go to the next level, I don't think the signings we've made give you that immediate kind of feeling. They are what Willie was saying, players that we're going to build up, that are going to develop over time, and that will either continue at Celtic or we might sell them on for a higher fee when the time comes. Like Willie, I'm also a little bit concerned about some of the key areas and the lack of kind of movement in them. So I think Willie's spot on there. And I know we'll talk about Ryan Strain's situation shortly, but obviously that's an area I probably think we don't necessarily need right now. And there are other more pressing areas. So when you sort of read rumours that we're looking to bring in someone like a Ryan Strain at right back, but you realise you've got other areas of the park you probably need to fix sooner, that's a little bit disconcerting. I don't know if it's been a what I call a terrible window or anything like that. I just don't think it's had the signings that maybe a few of us had anticipated might come along. It's not to say it's necessarily bad, it just hasn't had that kind of wow factor.
Before we jump to you, Stephen, for your thoughts on it, I just want to say, how I'm seeing it, Shane, is Jota's moved on, Abada has stepped up. So we've spoken about it for the last year and a half on our podcast that you have your starter, but then you want to have the guy under them. So when you sell the starter, that guy's ready to step up, and then you bring in the guy underneath to replace him. So that production line that we've been talking about, Jota moves on, and then you have Abada steps in the starting spot. Then you bring Yang in underneath him, and the idea works. But at the same time, it's interesting to see where we're at overall, but hadn't really been any first team starters brought in. Stephen. Clearly he doesn't, because he's just dropped out again. So we'll move on. So further to that topic we were just talking about there, we want to discuss a few different positions, particularly goalkeeping position, left back and right back, which you've just touched on there, Shane. So what do we need to bring in at each of those three positions to strengthen it? Okay. Do we need to bring in a starter or someone to challenge for it? Like we're talking about Ryan Strain with that. So at right back, Ryan Strain, he comes into Strain comes in as basically a backup to Alistair Johnston. For me, I look at that and go, Strain is a very similar sort of player to Johnston, so I can understand why we bring him in, but I'll throw to you for a bit more depth on that. Then we'll go to you, Stephen, for the goalkeeping situation, what the goal is there and how you would strengthen that, and then we'll go to you, Willie, for the left-back situation. All right, so let's just, off we go, Shane.
Yeah, so the right-back situation's interesting. I think the link to Ryan Strain came a little bit caught me by surprise a little bit. Look, he's been a quality player down in Australia for quite a while before he made his move overseas. Obviously, last season at St Mirren, became first-choice right-back and had a really good season. Was their first choice right back. I think it was 4 goals, 5 assists in a team that really punched above their weight, and he was crucial to their success. And he's a quality player. He's combative. He loves to get stuck in. He loves to go forward. He's got a great work rate, so he ticks a lot of boxes. I guess the question, and we had a little bit of debate about this in the group chat today, is about, if Ralston gets up to speed, are they sort of much the same player? Look, I think Strain gives us a lot going forward. I think he gives us a little bit more going forward than what Ralston does. But I think for me, look, I'd be happy to bring him in. I just don't think this is the area I'd be looking at right now. I think we've got Ralston, who's obviously still getting up to match fitness. He's more than capable of continuing on. You've got a Wada that can deputise there if need be. And then obviously Johnston comes back in, and then you've got sort of your starter, your backup, and then your cover essentially. So look, not against it, but at the same time, I don't think it's the area we need to focus on just yet.
Yeah, so on the goalkeeping situation, I think now the situation with Joe Hart is becoming almost critical. He's now effectively costing his goals and making almost a mistake, quite a serious mistake, almost every game now. I was talking to Shane off just before the show there, and we both kind of agreed he was fortunate to get away with one in Saturday's game, which I thought was a penalty. I know some people disagreed, didn't think there was much contact with the Ross County striker, but I think he got away with one there. When it went to VAR, I was absolutely convinced he was going to give a penalty, and it would have been a red card as well, and that could have changed the outcome of the game completely. So I think we critically need a goalkeeper, especially for the European competitions. Myself, Willie, and Steve Smith put a podcast out earlier on in the week, and we were looking at the stats from last year's Champions League. And Joe Hart's performance in shot stopping was down near the very worst in the competition, and the result we got was that if he had performed at the average level for a Champions League goalkeeper, he'd have saved at least another 4 goals. Now, if you had 4 goals that we didn't concede in that Champions League, it could have added up to a win or an extra draw when we lost. So it's now become critical, and I think it's something that we definitely have to address. The fact that we're 3 weeks from the end of the transfer window and we haven't addressed it. Goalkeeper's not a position you want to be throwing someone in after the season started. And I think we've let this drag on too long already. A bit concerned listening to Brendan Rodgers' interview yesterday. that he's doesn't really see the goalkeeping situation as important as we do. And I think hopefully, he's just being coy and he's got stuff going on in the background. Because to me, this just sort of sums up the way the transfer window's going in general. It's been very underwhelming. And as far as Europe's concerned, myself, Willie, and Steve, again, we looked at how important the European competitions are, not just for us, but for every Scottish club this year. We're teetering on the brink of losing our automatic group stage qualification position. And if we perform as badly as we did last year, and Rangers also perform as badly as they did last year, then we will certainly lose it, not for next season, but for the season after. So it's critical that we not only sign a new goalkeeper, it's critical that we sign a goalkeeper that's going to improve us. And it's also critical we do something to improve the problematic positions through the team. Because we think, I feel as if last week we were saying that's okay, there's 4 weeks left in the transfer window. A week later we've sold Carol Starfelt. His replacement isn't in yet, although seems to be on the way. And now there's only 3 weeks to go in the transfer window. If we're sitting here this time next week saying the same thing, but there's only 2 weeks to go in the transfer window, we still haven't signed a goalkeeper, I think we might be in a bit of trouble. Mildly concerned.
I could live with this going, okay, there's 3 weeks, let's address the centre-back position this week. Then next week, let's address, goalkeeper position. Then the week after that, let's address something like that. As long as everything gets done by the end of the window, I could live with it. But I'm just going to bring up a couple of comments here. So we've got Lovett with that big keeper from Serviette last night played a blinder. The issue with that is Scott Baines also played a blinder against Rangers at Ibrox before, so I don't really want to be relying on that as a point. Stephen Ray, lots of good keepers available. Carl Johan Johnson, who played for Copenhagen against us in 2020, is now available on a free. So there's options out there. But Willie, we'll throw to you for your thoughts on goalkeeper situation and then the left-back situation. And Willie's dropped out. Lovely.
So I was just going to
go to you, Shane.
I'll take over from Willie. I was just going to pick up on what Stephen said before about the underwhelming transfer window and how time's ticking down. And I was just thinking, what's John Joe Kenny up to? We'll go and get him on loan again.
It feels as if we're heading for that sort of last day of the transfer window, doesn't it? Scrambling around looking for loans.
Oh, there you go. I padded enough, so Willie's back.
What did you cover there when I was off?
We talked about, I don't want to bring up any old wounds, but we talked about John Joe Kenny.
Oh, no, Jesus, don't say that again. No wonder I disappeared. I'm off again. See you later. As it goes for left back, I feel sorry for Greg Taylor. He's been a great servant for us, and he was absolutely fantastic in orange ball system, the setup where he inverted. He played it perfectly. But football is a fickle industry, and he's not going to be the type of fullback that Brendan Rodgers is going to go to week in, week out, because he can't bomb on up and down the way Brendan Rodgers is going to want him to. Constantly, week in, week out, teams will just hunker down and shell long balls into the left back position because of his sort of vertically challengedness he has. It is regular. It's every other team is doing it now, just long ball into the left back position. So for me, left back is probably number 2 on my priority list of players we need to sign. Number 1 being the goalkeeper. So yeah, it is a position we will need to strengthen him, because I don't think Bernabe is going to be the answer. I don't think Brendan Rodgers fancies him either. By the way, he wasn't even in the playing squad last weekend. So I think left back is a position that will be getting looked at. Whether we get a couple of weeks down the line and we have to go out and get Kieran Tierney on loan for the rest of the season, it could be an answer, but it's not a long-term solution. And with that comes the problem that Kieran Tierney's wage might command. The wage Kieran Tierney will command might cause ructions with the rest of the team. So it is a position that we should be addressing.
Yep, agree with you there, Willie. What we'll do is we'll crack on to our next topic. So some people have mentioned it in the comments, but O is currently out injured for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I'll go to you, Stephen. Will Celtic look to bring in another striker, or will we just play Maeda there as our backup until O is back from injury?
Yeah, so just on that, again, if you caught the interview with Brendan Rodgers yesterday, previewing the Aberdeen game, he spoke a little about O's. I spoke a little bit about O's injury, and he wasn't happy at all. Apparently, he tweaked it against Bilbao, and didn't tell anyone in the medical team, and then played. Obviously, he came on as a sub against Ross County, and made it even worse. So he wasn't happy at all, and you know the fact that he didn't declare that he was feeling a bit rough, you know, obviously Brendan wasn't happy. On the striker position, I really do think we need another striker, for two reasons really. One, I don't really buy this Maeda through the middle thing. The reason he doesn't play through the middle for us is because his finishing's terrible. And we can't rely on him, especially not in the Champions League. We saw what happened against Real Madrid at home when he missed an absolute sitter, and I think that was probably a real sliding doors moment for our Champions League campaign. So I'm not really buying it. It might work, you know, if we're playing away from home in Europe and we're defending a lead and we just want him to let harry defenders. But for me, he's not a striker. And he's certainly not one that can fit into our system. Now, the second reason I think we need another striker is all of these guys are potentially going to disappear for the Asian Cup in January. So we could spend a couple of weeks without Maeda, Kyogo or O. And we need an alternative then, unless he's planning to play Abada through the middle for those games. I don't think we want to see that. So I definitely think we need to see the club bringing in a third striker, and I would like it to be someone to challenge Kyogo rather than someone who's just, you know, happy to be second string. We should be looking to bring in someone at the same level or just slightly below Kyogo, so we've got real competition for places there, which I don't think we really have at the moment.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing you sort of mention the story about the tweaking of the calf, potentially just sort of keeping it under wraps and then it inadvertently getting worse over the weekend, which isn't a good start to life under a new manager either. So yeah, not good. I was actually excited to see how he was going to go, and particularly watching Kyogo at the weekend and the way he was dropping deeper to get on the ball and link up. Look, we've seen how O plays. We know he likes to drop into midfield. He looks good with the ball at his feet. He looks like he can hold up and then lay it off, which is what Giakoumakis obviously struggled a little bit with. So I was actually keen to see how he would go sort of playing in that kind of system. So it's a bit frustrating he's picked up this injury. To answer the overall question, yeah, I even think prior to O getting injured, we were probably looking at bringing in another striker, someone that can finish, or is a European quality striker, someone who can finish those chances, because we're going to need them. And Stephen's right. You know, in our last Champions League campaign, we had no issues with creating chances. Our issue was actually finishing chances. So we're going to need to make sure we've got someone there who can, you know, to use an old phrase, put the ball in the back of the net, right? So, yeah, I think we're going to be looking to bring in another striker.
Yeah, sorry. I definitely think we're going to be looking for another striker. All out as a blow, and Maeda can cover in there if need be, but as Stevie said, his finishing can be a bit suspect at times. But we talk about the Asia Cups. For me, the biggest concern is there's rumours circulating around the internet that Kyogo needs surgery on his shoulder. I mean, he has a glass shoulder. If he falls awkwardly at the weekend against Aberdeen and he injures his shoulder, where are we striker position then? That means we have to go with Maeda up front because we wouldn't have anyone else to play there. So I think it is definitely something that needs seriously addressed. So for me, it's number 3 on my list of targets to get.
Seems like we're getting into another Lewis Morgan situation, playing him at striker against the Huns. I think Maeda works if you're going to sit back and counter attack and have him in the Vardy sort of role, playing on the shoulder, and that's how he plays for Japan. That's how he works as a striker, but playing him leading the line, doing what Kyogo was doing on the weekend, doesn't suit him. With O being injured, that would suit him well, which is good. But yeah, it's it's a bit of an interesting one. There are rumours that we're linked with a striker from down in England. I can't remember the guy's name for the life of me, but he's a free agent and yeah, it could be coming up the road pretty shortly. So that's always another thing to keep an eye on. Now, I'm just going to also bring up that Stephen has actually told us in our little chatty, aggravated his calf in training, not against Ross County. He didn't train it, and then he played against Bilbao with it, didn't he? Is that right, Stephen?
That's right, mate. Sorry, I got that one wrong. He didn't play, as was pointed out in the comments there, he didn't play against Ross County, but he did aggravate, he injured his calf against Bilbao, didn't tell the medical staff, and then aggravated it in training during the week. So that was why Brendan was a bit annoyed.
Now, Mark McDonald, you are some sick sort of person in the comments here. Are Yetis still on the books? No. Jeez. All right, Shane and Stephen, I'll go to you two. We're going to change up the topic. We're going to leave the preview for the game against Aberdeen till last, but I want you guys to give us a chance to give the Tillies a shout out for what's going on in the Women's World Cup. So over to you guys.
Yeah, I'm on the Tillies. They've had an interesting World Cup run so far. Obviously started pretty brightly against Ireland, an unexpected loss against Nigeria, which led to a lot of criticism, but resounding win over Canada and then a similar kind of performance against Denmark has seen us into the quarterfinals, and we are playing France in Brisbane on the weekend. They're playing really well. They've got a good sort of group together at the moment. I love the squad that we've got. I think they can beat France. I genuinely think they can go all the way with the way that the group's opened up, and that's no disrespect to the other teams that they've got to face. But they've done well, and they've had a couple of really good quality players stand up. Katrina Gorry's been fantastic in midfield. The two fullbacks are always quality in Steph Catley and Ellie Carpenter. They've been fantastic, and Caitlin Ford was on fire against Denmark. So. Look, I genuinely think we can go all the way, and it's been a real shot in the arm for women's football here, and I'm sure Stephen will touch on it a bit further in terms of how the reception's been like in Sydney. But I've been fortunate enough to attend a few games down in Melbourne, and packed houses each time, even if Australia wasn't playing. The atmosphere is great. So many people getting involved. It's not just a shot in the arm for women's football in this country, but a real shot in the arm for football in general in this country. And I think we've done well so far. And I think we've actually broken the attendance record for a Women's World Cup. And that was before we even reached the quarterfinals. So people here are supporting it. People love the game. We're even seeing today some kind of collaboration between the AFL as well. They've actually committed to showing the game on the big screens before the actual AFL games this week. And they've even pushed back one of the start times for a Saturday night game. It's very rare to see the AFL sort of kind of work collaboratively with football in this country. So, but no, I'm really looking forward to what should be an amazing quarterfinal, and hopefully the Tillies get through. Potentially playing England in the semi-final. That's going to be exciting. But no, get on the Tillies bandwagon. I've come prepared with props. So come on. Go the Tillies. Over to you, Stephen. I've talked too much.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to attend the Denmark game down at Stadium Australia on Monday night, and I was blown away with how good the experience was. The crowd was great, the atmosphere was great. It was just so good to see families there, young kids there, plenty of young girls there. And it was just great. It was such a great experience and a great atmosphere. To my eternal shame, I haven't been to too many women's games, but that was definitely right up there with one of my best football experiences in a long, long time. And I was really impressed with the standard of play as well. The Matildas were very good. One player that caught my eye was Mary Fowler. The ball she played through for the first goal. For Caitlin Ford was just sensational, and that would have been a sensational pass at any level of football anywhere in the world. And if De Bruyne had played that ball through to Haaland, we'd be talking about it for weeks. Yeah, just read that comment. That put me off a bit. Um, So yeah, I think I agree with Shane as well. Great shot in the arm for both the women's game and for football in general in this country. I was reading about the viewing figures. There was almost 3.5 million people watched the game on Channel 7 alone. Um, and that doesn't count the people who watched it on Optus or people who watched it at pubs, clubs, fan zones and the like. So I think it's sort of conservative to assume there'd be more than 4 million people watched that game, which is almost a quarter of the population of Australia, and it's absolutely incredible. Especially since that those sort of viewing figures blew any NRL grand final in recent years right out the water. Any state of origin game, and I think all but two AFL grand finals in recent years are rated higher, and that's only the quarter final. Sorry, the round of 16. So we've still got the quarters, the semis, and hopefully the final to go. So absolutely brilliant. You can't buy a Matilda scarf anywhere in Sydney just now. They're all sold out. I tried to get one for my daughter the other day there. Really hard to get. So big shot in the arm for the sport in this country. And hopefully, the football authorities will kick on from here and start to realise. Because in my opinion, football's the biggest sport in this country. It's certainly the biggest participation sport. And it's high time the football authorities themselves and the various government organisations stop treating it like a minority sport, because it's certainly not that. So hopefully we'll see some long-term benefits, and I'm delighted to be part of the experience.
I've got a couple little things to say. It's only a matter of time until Football Australia butcher things like they always do. However, the Socceroos, the Matildas, and then the Boomers and the Opals to the basketball teams, they're probably the most unifying national sports teams we've got in this country. And the two highest, most participated sports in Australia at junior level are football/soccer and basketball. And so it's great to see the groundswell behind the Matildas, the Socceroos at the last World Cup. Let's just hope, Football Australia and the APL don't butcher it. But anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll get on to previewing Celtic versus Aberdeen on Sunday. The question for you, and we'll go to you first, Willie. Will Celtic continue our recent dominance over Aberdeen up at Pittodrie this weekend? Before you answer that, I've got some stats for you. The stats we have here are head-to-head, Celtic v Aberdeen, and I can give you total matches, total score, Pittodrie games, Celtic Park games, League Cup, Premiership, and Cups. I can break it all down across the board. So I'm going to ask you, Willie, in the league, at Pittodrie, there's been 41 games. Like, in our last 41 games on these stats that I've got, how many Celtic wins? How many Aberdeen wins? What do you think?
There'll be about 32 Celtic wins, maybe.
So you got 31 wins for us, 6 draws, 4 wins for Aberdeen. At Celtic Park, it's 36 wins, 1 draw, and 5 wins for Aberdeen. So overall, when you put the League Cups and the Scottish Cup games into it, in the last 83 games, it's 67 wins for us, 7 draws, 9 losses against Aberdeen. So it's pretty dominant. So what we'll do is I'll go to you, Willie, run with it from here. Is what do you think we're going to see on the weekend, and what do you think our starting lineup will be?
I think we'll have a tough game. I think Aberdeen have been rejuvenated under Barry Robson, and they'll be hard to break down. But I think we will break them down nonetheless. I think we'll win 3-1, and I think the starting lineup will be Hart, Taylor, CCV, Narowski, Rostinho, Kalmak, O'Reilly, Katati, Maeda, Abada, and Kyogo. So yeah, I think we'll win, and it'll be a comfortable one.
Did you give a score prediction, or did I miss it?
3-1.
3-1. Shane, your starting lineup and score prediction, and then to you, Stephen.
Yep, similar to Willie, I think we're going to have Hart, Taylor, Narovsky, CCV, Ralston. I'm going something a little bit different in midfield. Don't read into this, but I think Atate comes in. I reckon O'Reilly gets a seat on the bench. So midfield is going to be Kalmak, Atate, and Turnbull. Turnbull to be mainly at the point of the attack. And then up front, we will have Maeda, Kyogo, and Abada. I think it's going to be a pretty tough game. I think they're going to be pretty combative, particularly at Pataudry. I know those stats are pretty impressive, but still, I think they're going to give us a pretty tough contest. And Willie's right, they're pretty rejuvenated under Robson. So I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win 2-1. I think it's going to be pretty close. So 2-1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with Shane's lineup there. I think Hatate will come back up. He'll come back into the team. Where I disagree is I think he'll come in at Turnbull's expense. I think Turnbull will be moved to the bench, and I think this will be part of Brendan, having a look at what he's got. In terms of what he needs to do for the rest of the transfer window. I'm also in agreement. I think it'll be a tough game, but I think we'll have enough in the locker to get the win. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. For Celtic, I'm going to take Kyogo to score 2 goals and Abada to score the third one.
And for me, I'm going to just throw a bit different again. I'd take Turnbull out, but I'll put Awada in, and push Kelmack further forward, just to be different. That's the only reason I'm doing it. Just so all 4 of us are saying a different midfield. But yeah, I'm saying I think we'll win 4-2 again. There you go. 4-2. We're a nice high scoring one up there. So, yeah, should be looking forward to it. The game on the weekend. I think we'll start to wrap the pot up there because it's getting a bit late for Willie over in New Zealand. That's probably why people in the comments are saying they're struggling to hear him because it's past his bedtime due to technical difficulties. So, yeah, just thanks everyone for tuning in to our first episode of the Thursday Sesh. Thanks, Stephen, Shane, Willie, and hail, and we'll talk to you all next week.